Making transparency meaningful, that's a challenge we certainly all face. Being a member to the Pirate Party, I am a big proponent of transparency and accountability because it empowers us and the public. And knowledge is power. In fact, I'm currently suing the Commission over its refusal to disclose information on unethical and even illegal research and development of video lie detector technology. And the ruling is expected on Wednesday on that. And you know, scientists can only deliberate these questionable technologies and their accuracy and their discriminatory impact if the technology and the results are out in the open. And also the media and parliaments can only deliberate this kind of intrusive technology if we know about it and if we have all the information that is necessary. So that's why I hope that this ruling will set a precedent and allow us to hold the EU accountable for the research it funds. But then knowing problems does not yet stop them. Transparency to me is a tool to change and improve the regulation. So we will need to come to exclusion of unethical technologies in the EU's research funding program. We will need to reform the ethics review process. So this is what transparency is about. It's a tool, it's a vehicle. And in a similar vein, the proposed Digital Services Act of the European Union has been drafted by liberal commissioners and has been welcomed by industry. And it's all about transparency, about self-auditing and co-regulation. So in fact, transparency seems to be the liberal answer to addressing the lack of respect for fundamental rights online. So let me look into where the proposed Digital Services Act transparency provisions can support fundamental rights. So there's a provision according to which information in the terms and conditions should be provided on any restrictions that are imposed in relation to the use of a service, as well as the main parameters for recommender systems. So I think this will be rather general language that we usually see in the terms. And as long as the users are not given a choice, or for example, interoperability of recommender systems, it is of limited value. What we are pushing for is that users would have a right to see their timeline in chronological order only, as Francis Hogan is also advocating for, but also giving users the right to use external algorithms of their choice, such as ones that are developed by the community. I think that would go a long way in addressing the problems these algorithms and content amplification creates. There is provision in the proposed Digital Services Act for a yearly transparency report by companies. So we'll see statistics on takedowns and data requests. That's kind of a standard procedure that is already in place for most companies. That will be mandatory. We'll also see a yearly report on upload filters with indicators of the accuracy and any safeguards applied. So this goes in the right direction. However, it's not exactly what Frances Hogan suggested. She said that you really need to break down the accurate statistics in country by country, because the filters work even less well for non-English language content. It regularly suppresses valuable content. She mentioned counter-terrorist content, but the same applies to media content, LGBTQI content, and all kinds of content that is filtered because these filters can't reliably tell right from wrong. So the information that is provided for in the Commission's proposal to a Digital Services Act may go some way, but it can only be the start of the discussion. Companies will also need to notify and give reasons for removing content. So the person that posted it will be given reasons and also some information on where to seek redress. That's of course useful and important because you can only challenge decisions if you know the reasons why they were taken. Viewers or users will be able to identify ads as well as the advertiser, and will have a right to know the main targeting parameters. There will also be a public ads database. So this certainly supports a public discussion that has repeatedly resulted in reforms and in corporations removing certain targeting mechanisms and criteria. Often it can still be circumvented, and it's not really sufficient to address the problems that come with the personalized targeting of content. It's a tool that, if used in elections and referendums, can actually be used to manipulate democracy, can be used for foreign interference. If messages are just designed in a way that appeals to the personality of the person reading them. It's not just something that a person can decide individually. Many people may not understand the implications of this kind of manipulation and the power of the data that can be mined from comprehensive online user profiles. Transparency will also not prevent manipulation from minors or by targeting very sensitive groups, such as based on the sexuality of a person, based on their religion, etc. pp. Then there is an obligation that large companies and otherwise an EU authority will publish a yearly report on systemic risks that have been reported by platforms, as well as best practices to address them. Now this sounds like a good thing, because this can sort of be part of a fundamental rights impact assessment. However, the legislation that mandates mitigating risks without specifying this could actually make things worse. Very worried about the collateral damage that companies may cause if they try themselves to address so-called systemic risks. Note that the legislation is about risks. It's not about actual impacts, about any adverse impacts. It's the mere risks that they want to address. I'm concerned that there is no democratic accountability in terms of these mitigation measures. There is no judicial oversight. And that is a kind of a Pandora's box that we are opening here. The key transparency provision that has been hailed a lot is a data access provision that would give access to vetted researchers in order to research systemic risks that the platforms are responsible for. The European Parliament, in its position that's just being adopted, wants to add here non-for-profit NGOs that should also be given access, and also wants to mandate the publication of the findings of the researchers, which is of course important improvements. And here again, publications on the algorithms that platforms use have repeatedly make them adjust and correct their algorithms. So this is of value. But again, it doesn't mean that users will be given any choice when it comes to their timeline. So it may make the platforms adjust and improve on their algorithms. I'm not sure if they are aware of their own algorithms all the time. It seems to be very complicated. So to sum it up, I think Frances Haugen's leaks prove that a company like Facebook Meta keeps consistently prioritizing profits over the public good. But with the Digital Services Act, the EU keeps believing it can make big tech pursue a public interest agenda and sort of fix problems by itself. That's really naive at best, in my opinion. I think that transparency has a very valuable role in safeguarding our rights online, but it's not sufficient if we want the Digital Services Act to be a game changer when it comes to the surveillance capitalist business model that relies on pervasive monitoring of our every online action, when it comes to error-prone censorship algorithms, or when it comes to the platform lock-in that we are encountering. So that's why in the run-up to the plenary vote on the European Parliament's position to the Digital Services Act, I'm calling for improvements, and we'll also see that amendments are tabled that will go beyond transparency and into the regulation of these platforms. What we need is a political will to put users and our democratic institutions in control of the digital age, rather than continuing to trust in multinational corporations to shape the digital era we and our children are living in. That said, I wish you a fruitful and hopefully successful discussion on how to make transparency meaningful. Thank you for having me.